Yes, so here we are. The pilgrimage is behind us now. Pilgrimage from Paris to Chartres, 3-day, 2-night medieval pilgrimage is done. Our feet are healing, and we've made our way now up to Gaming, Austria. As you can see behind us, it's really beautiful here. Essentially what we're doing, we're carrying on the spirit of Catholic counter-revolution by retracing the steps of the great Emperor Karl, blessed Karl of Austria, the last of the great Holy Roman emperors. You know, so our pilgrimages are always in a counter-revolutionary Catholic theme. We visited Mariazell yesterday and so forth. So, yeah, as far as the Chartres pilgrimage, my problem is it's just really difficult to really convey to the people watching these videos or whatever back home how different this thing is. You know, it's not at all, as we said last time, a vacation or a getaway or whatever. It really is. It's a Catholic rendezvous in which you get traditional Catholics from all over the world. I really can't think at the moment. I can't really think of a country that was not represented at this year's pilgrimage. It was bigger than ever. It was more beautiful than ever. You know, we had Archbishop Leonard say the Mass on Monday, which was just incredible. Those animals from Femen, you remember squirting him with water, and he behaved like a saint, and he's been a real champion over here in Europe in defense of marriage and whatnot. So for him to come to Chartres on Monday, Pentecost Monday, and offer this high-profile traditional Latin Mass, I mean, just tears, and everybody was just like, because there's so many. We had Cardinal Burke say it a couple of years ago. There's so many high-profile bishops and even cardinals. Bishop Schneider was here a few years ago, who are now recognizing the importance of this event. And so you just cannot ignore the impact that it's having. The Vatican is aware of it. We used to get messages from the Vatican, blessing the pilgrimage and greetings from the Pope. That doesn't happen anymore, and I just can't figure out why. Wink, wink, nod, nod. I know exactly why, and it's sort of ironic in a way because the pilgrimage is bigger and more powerful and more counter-revolutionary, I think, than ever, mostly because of our friend Pope Francis, who he has managed, he's accomplished in his short, tenure now what, traditional Catholics have been trying for 50 years to make clear to people, to their, to their readers and so forth, that the Church is in unprecedented crisis. And it required Pope Francis, his reign of distilled modernism, liberalism, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes it doesn't even resemble Catholicism, quite frankly, to really start waking people up, that it's not just Francis, and everyone knows it's not just Francis. And that's what he's done, and that's, in a way, I sometimes feel like writing an open letter of gratitude to Pope Francis, because he's shown people what's been happening, not just since Vatican II, but certainly modernism comes out of the closet at Vatican II, and people can say, well, it's not just Francis, he didn't come out of nowhere, and so their eyes, the scales are falling off, and they're realizing it was all the post-conciliar popes, it was the Second Vatican Council, the revolution of the Second Vatican Council, it was the liturgical revolution, all of it is leading to this moment, and that was palpable on this pilgrimage. Everybody I talked to, and I talked to so many new chapters. It was, really fun to see. The chapters from Portugal and Spain and Sweden. They hadn't been there. The Netherlands were there this year. Countries that have we've sort of written off in terms of Catholicism, gone. But there you see it, this remnant of Catholicism. So this in Sweden, a country which is in many ways worse than Nazi Germany now, and the church is just dead in Sweden. And yet just 2 years ago, there were 4 Swedes, great guys, that walked with our chapter, the U.S. chapter, Our Lady of Guadalupe. This year there were 40, and that's sort of the trend, just this explosion, even in these little countries where the Catholic population is very small. Traditionalism is beginning to be the thing, and it's beginning to take root, it's beginning to blossom. And so that, I think, was the most, as far as this year's pilgrimage, the reason it was different was because you just had this militant feel. Everybody knows what's going on. We are all united. And even to an extent, Francis could be said to be, or this pilgrimage, in conjunction with what's happening in Rome, could be said to really be bringing traditionalism together all across the world. Because, there's always been this division between the Society of St. Pius X and the other orders and whatnot. But even there, the organizers of the pilgrimage to Chartres, Notre Dame de Chrétienté, they met with the Society of St. Pius X pilgrimage, which goes the other direction. It goes from Chartres to Paris. The wrong one, by the way, because the traditional route is from Paris to Chartres. But that's a kind of a fun little fight that we have with our brothers in the SSPX. We got the right direction. But anyway, they had a meeting on, I think it was on Sunday morning, an actual formal meeting, the 2 pilgrimage heads, leaders, I was talking to the president, Notre Dame de Chrétienté, and he said the spirit is better now than it's ever been in terms of solidarity and alliance. There is no animosity between the 2 pilgrimages. Sometimes back home in the States, society people want to say, well, you know, we started it or whatever. That doesn't exist in France. There's none of that sort of competition between the two pilgrimages. And our young people could see that. They could sense that. The unity is everywhere. Nobody's talking, as I said in Paris last week, nobody's talking about their little thing. I got my little blog or my little newspaper, my little website, and I'm really important and everybody wants. No, that just disappears along the road to Chartres. It's completely gone. All we are is Catholic, traditional Catholics, marching as brothers, you know, brothers in arms, if you will, in defense of the old faith, in unified proclamation of the kingship of Christ, in absolute insistence, exclusive insistence on the traditional Latin Mass, and at the same time, we have this opportunity to lovingly begin to remove the scales from our neo-Catholic friends' eyes. So we had some neo-Catholics, some folks who don't even attend the Latin Mass, even in our chapter, who are curious. They wanted to learn more. And I welcomed them into our chapter. You got to come and take a look at this. And because the Novus Ordo is collapsing everywhere now, it's not such a hard case to make anymore. They can see the Novus Ordo is dying. But you don't have to like condemn everybody who's not exactly in lockstep with us. You can just lovingly say, this is what they stole from us. On the pilgrimage, it's just manifested beautifully. So we had, you know, a lot of great conversations with people who are curious about tradition. And just as like the remnant newspaper is exploding now in terms of renewed interest, the pilgrimage is having is experiencing the same phenomenon. Many, many people from all over. So I just can't say enough about sending the message not only back home but wherever our videos, you know, wherever they go around the world. This is not just us. This is a movement now that's taken on a life of its own. This pilgrimage to Chartres, it's unifying. It's an annual rendezvous. It's unifying the traditional Catholic throughout the whole world. I cannot stress the importance of this. Michael Davies said that it was the most important annual event happening in Christendom today, and before he died, he said that. I absolutely agree. Only you know what? I think it's even more important now in the reign of Francis for traditionalists to get together, get over themselves, stop with the competing to whatever extent that still is going on. We've just about lost one of our buildings over in Paris. We need to set up a unified front now. We need to get serious. We need to prepare, and there is no better place in the world to spiritually, mentally, even physically prepare for the battle of our lives, for the battle for Catholic restoration, than along the road to Chartres, which of course ends then at Notre Dame de Chartres in the grand and glorious solemn high pontifical mass that sort of confirms the whole thing, that this is it. We got our marching orders. We need to take the spirit of the Chartres pilgrimage and bring it out to the whole world. And this year, more than ever before, that's exactly the spirit, and that's what happened. And of course, first and foremost, the pilgrimage to Chartres has always been fundamentally Marian. It's all about Our Lady. Henry Adams called the Chartres Cathedral Our Lady's Playhouse, which I just love that. That's a little place, you know, that's set aside for her. As a matter of fact, it's one of the few cathedrals in Europe that does not have anybody buried, you know, in the crypt. It's an empty, clean crypt because the people of Chartres said that Our Lady's Playhouse, this is where she comes, and we don't want her to be, to be frightened. It's very childlike. It's beautiful. So we don't want to have bones in the basement of Our Lady's Playhouse. And so it's always been about going to Our Lady. And that's, I don't want to, even though this pilgrimage is very positive, this is not to overlook the fact that we are in the greatest crisis in the church, in the history of the church. You know, things are dying in the church at the highest levels. And so we must unite ourselves to Our Lady. And that's what they've always done. The Crusaders, when they would go, before they would go off to battle, they would go to Chartres and they would take their tunic, and they would, because they knew that her veil was there, and they would touch their tunics to the veil of Our Lady so that she would intercede for them in battle. So that's exactly what we did this year. We went to Chartres and we all touched our garments, our clothes, shirt, whatever, jacket, as close as we could to the veil, to the reliquary of our veil, for the same reason, because we are in combat. We do have to go to war to preserve the faith in ourselves and to defend the church to whatever degree we can. We can't do that without Our Lady. And so we had an opportunity this year, in fact, because the cathedral's there because of the veil. Basically, it's a huge reliquary to house the veil of Our Lady. So this year we had the great pleasure of, or privilege of, we had a friend who was able to get the cathedral doors unlocked at midnight on Tuesday, Pentecost Tuesday, and all of our pilgrims, remnant pilgrims, were able to, as a group, go down into the crypt, just like a medieval pilgrim would have done, to venerate the veil in candlelit, fashion, the way it would have been done in the Middle Ages. How is it different than World Youth Day? Well, there's no comparison. World Youth Day is almost like a music festival. It's where you have adults catering to children. It's where priests, sort of get really cool and hip, and they're getting down with the kiddies and talking to the kids on their level and all. And I could not stress more how it's the exact opposite. They put on the golf shorts, the shorts and the golf shirt and all this stuff, and that's going to make them relevant to the kids. And what they don't realize is that makes them utterly irrelevant. Even if in the moment, wow, Father's like looking just like we are. He's going to go play guitar with us. Wah! Okay, it might feel kind of fun for a second, but kids don't know any better. So to the extent that this pilgrimage to Chartres now is trying to reach the youth, it does it the polar opposite, the exact opposite. So that the priests then are the leaders. The priests are the stars of, if you will, of this whole pilgrimage. I can't tell you what it's like to see, especially the young men, because all of the priests, they're in every single chapter. They're the driving force behind this, and so they wear the cassock, they wear the surplice, they wear the stole the entire time, and it gets really hot and it gets really muddy. So you get to see priests, almost like a crusading for the Crusaders, priests that are right there with you. They're not leading us, because Notre Dame de Chrétienté is a lay organization. So the chef de chapitre, the leaders of the chapter, are all of the various chapters, like 280 chapters. They're all laymen. So that I really like that too, that really beautiful complementarity where you have the role of the lay people. We are the soldiers, we are the fighters, we are the crusaders, but we can't do it without the priests. And so the priests are there to administer the sacraments, to spiritually invigorate us, to give us the devotions, to even have consecrations to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, that actually are led by the priests, with 1,000 young scouts after walking all day long, kneeling in the grass at night, making a consecration, the de Montfort consecrations. It's just like, it's unbelievable. So the priests do not go down to the level of the kids. They keep the priesthood where it always was, as it is at the Latin Mass, 3 steps up, higher than everyone else. Back facing the people, leading everyone towards God. He doesn't turn around. And on the pilgrimage, it's the same way. The priests are the stars. And so I think that's the big difference. The young people see priests as this sort of liaison between man and God. And he has to be there. He can't be strumming the guitar and doing stupid things. So all of that sort of plays out. And so consequently, you have these beautiful things. You have the beautiful Mass. You have young people being young people. Maybe we can throw some video up or a clip up of young people after Mass one day in Chartres. Where they started throwing, what is that thing called with the frisbee? The ultimate frisbee. Having this great game of frisbee out there. They just come from Mass. They got ties on and skirts and whatnot. And I was watching it. And I was like, isn't it interesting? Because you saw the very typical teenage kids from the city of Chartres now, just watching these traditionalists, having so much joy, having so much fun, that they jumped in. So you had this really interesting thing. And that's how the pilgrimage works all along, where you have the traditional Catholic display. It's done lovingly, it's done joyfully. People are singing, they're praying, they're serious, they're suffering, they got blisters. It's hard. It's really a difficult pilgrimage. And because of all that, because life is hard, because life is a pilgrimage, because life isn't easy, you don't get to do anything and everything you want, the people now in the secular world, the modern world, in Paris especially, they look on and they're like, this is intriguing, because these people have got what the world right now is suffering from, that they do not have, the absence of, which is something to believe in, a cause, a crusade, and it's palpable along the road to Chartres. Scapulars, rosaries, banners of Our Lady, statue, it's just right in the face of the New World Order, just right in the face, and they know it. They know it. This is a column miles long of essential, almost like an army, like militant, church militant crusaders, and the modern world stands up and looks and says, what is this? And that's why they have so many conversions to the faith and conversions to traditional Catholicism, traditional Latin Mass. So this is why I stress this, so people will understand why we do this every year, why we bring young people over. You can't do this in the States. It has to be here in Catholic France and Catholic Europe, where this is the cradle of Christianity, if you will. The faith has to come here. It has to be reborn here. Traditionalism has to be reborn here. And then we can export it. And this is not to undercut Americans. We had 4 chapters this year. It was really great. 4 Americans. And the French are very, very pleased, delighted to have us come all the way across the Atlantic to be with them, to be one, to be that, with one voice, una voce, to say, yeah, we're together. We are together. We're counter-revolution. Traditional Catholicism is here to stay. You can kill us if you want. Talk about martyrdom. We talk about martyrdom a lot on this pilgrimage. Not in a dour, scary sense, but in a sense of, once you get young people especially to say, I want to get to the point where I could actually die for this. And this isn't, some people think this is sort of sensational. This has happened thousands and thousands and thousands of times. We're not so special when we start talking this way. Little Agnes, who was she? Or Barbara, or, you know, the Cecilia. Who are these people? Just little kids from back 2,000 years ago who came to the same realizations. Jesus is who he says he is. He rose from the dead. If he didn't, there wouldn't be a church. So what do? They said to the revolution then, and we're saying to the revolution now, kill us, go right ahead, because we're all going to be dead in a little while anyway. And as soon as we say that, as soon as we say we're willing, two things happen. We disempower the revolution, because if you're always worried they're going to take away your freedom and your liberties and they might even kill you someday, you're never going to be a crusader. You have to be right up in their face and say, no, you've gone far enough. We're not going to back down. We're going to live as traditional Catholics. We're going to die as traditional Catholics. Whether you kill us or whether we die of old age, it doesn't matter. And what happens when you start seriously considering martyrdom, which is a theme now because Christians are being persecuted all over the world, what happens is this beautiful, liberating revelation manifests itself to every pilgrim on the Chartres pilgrimage. And that manifestation is, we have just taken the sword from the hands of the revolution. The revolution failed because they spent 50, 100 years trying to destroy everything that blossomed on the road to Chartres, everything that was put full on display. Marian devotion, the traditional Latin Mass, the whole idea of the kingship of Christ, which is what the theme of the pilgrimage was this year, the peace of Christ through the proclamation of the kingship of Christ. It all comes roaring back. And so you know the revolution has failed, which is why traditionalism is blowing up all over the world. There is nothing like this going on anywhere in the church, which is why I'm really very proud of the fact that for almost 30 years now, the Remnant has been supporting, promoting, giving free advertising away like crazy to this organization, Notre Dame de Chrétienté, because pilgrimage is the hope of the church. It's the hope of the whole world. It's not going to be restored through voting properly. It's not going to be restored through politics, at least not democratic politics. It is going to be restored because if the Catholic people can find themselves again, find their identity again, become traditionalists again, and swear fidelity to the kingship of Christ and to the Catholic restoration and counter-revolution movement. There's nothing else that's going to do it, and there's nothing else in the world that's doing a better job of making that manifest and training foot soldiers of Jesus Christ, to do that than the Chartres pilgrimage. Cannot say enough about it. I hope people will consider either coming on it next year again. We might even have a second and third, fourth, fifth chapter from the United States, whatever it takes. We're just going to keep doing this. Support it in other ways. If you can donate to the Youth Fund, fine, whatever. This is the most important Catholic event happening anywhere in the world today, and I'm proud to have been a part of it for a long time, and as long as I live, I'm going to continue to be part of the pilgrimage from Paris to Chartres.